Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, a massive Big Ten matchup as the undefeated Maryland Terps head on the road to play Ohio State, coming off a bye week, a massive win on the road against Notre Dame. And I think the most interesting narrative about this Ohio State team that kind of gets lost in translation a little bit is everyone wants to talk about the quarterback, Kyle McCord, Marvin Harrison Jr. This Ohio State defense is absolutely elite. And Ryan Day even said it in that infamous, or not infamous, but viral post-game presser where this team gets evaluated on one bad half of football. He's not totally wrong, right? This Ohio State team gave up some big plays in the national spotlight, but from a down-to-down basis, even going back to last year, this Ohio State defense has been really good. And the start of this year, it's been a really dominant group. Excited to get into this one because this is a Maryland team that comes in as a top 10 offense in a lot of different metrics. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support that you guys have shown the boys for all these game breakdowns has been absolutely awesome. Almost 10,000 subscribers. If you do want to support the fellas, you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, best part about doing this, hearing your guys' picks, keys to the game in the comment section. Without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start with this Maryland offense going up against an Ohio State defense that I'm going to read you off some numbers. I mean, this is number 2 in the country in points per game, only allowing 9 points per game. Number 4 in the country with only allowing 4.1 yards per play to opposing offenses, only 5.4 yards per pass, which is the kind of the big bugaboo that we are talking about is Ohio State not giving up the explosive play, didn't give up a single play over 30 yards against Notre Dame. Now you head over to Maryland. The flip side, this is a Maryland offense that Tully is playing about as good of football as we've seen. He's completing 65% of his balls, 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns. But I think the most important thing for Maryland fans is he's not making the mistakes. Maryland is number 1 in the country with their quarterback only getting sacked on 0.7% of their dropbacks. Tully has had problems taking care of the football, taking sacks. He's only thrown 3 picks through the season. He's not giving up any sacks. This is a Maryland offense that's playing really well, and that's probably the biggest story of the game. And as good as Ohio State has been on the defensive side of the ball, and Ohio State fans, really interested to hear your take on this one. I think the edge rushers could be a little bit better. Now, on the inside, Michael Hall, Tyleik Williams, they're getting after. Watching that Notre Dame game back, those guys were really, really good on the inside. Jack Sawyer, JTT, 2 guys that we kind of said all-American caliber players. They haven't necessarily been great or dominant as edge rushers. And I get Notre Dame has 2 NFL tackles, really good group, but I feel like those 2 guys leaving a little left on the table. You're kind of looking for them in the second half of the season to be those all-American impact players that I think a lot of us know they have in them. You look at some of the numbers, Ohio State's only sacking the quarterback on 3% of dropbacks. That's outside of the top 100, which if I would have told you that coming into the year with all the talent on that defensive line, you would be a little bit more surprised. So Ohio State, really good numbers on the defensive side of the ball. You just want to see kind of taking that next step, really impacting the passer, I think is the next step for this Ohio State team. And that's what I'll be looking for against Maryland, who's been really good at protecting the quarterback and getting the ball out on time. Now, the wide receiver matchup against an Ohio State secondary, that has been nails so far. Another interesting story. I mean, Maryland's got a lot of different weapons that they can get the ball to, right? Deshaun Jones, Ty Felton. I mean, Caden Prather, the transfer from West Virginia, he's playing really good ball. Corey Dyches. Maryland's got a lot of weapons. They're going to spread you out. Ohio State in the secondary, I mean, Denzel Burke playing some of the best football across the country, kind of getting back to that true freshman form. Another thing I'll be looking for, you're going to see some real battles between a Maryland team that wants to spread you out, push the ball down the field, versus an Ohio State secondary that's been extremely stingy, especially giving up the big play. That kind of, when you look at Maryland and potentially going on the road and beating Ohio State, Maryland's got to try to hit some of those explosive plays. And this Jim Knowles Ohio State defense has been really, really good so far, not giving up those explosive plays, which, again, was kind of the narrative coming in is, can Ohio State limit those explosive plays? They certainly have done a really good job doing so that far. And again, that sounds like I'm an Ohio State fan. Most of you guys who know me know I'm not. I'm actually a Michigan fan. But you have to give credit where it's due. This Jim Knowles Ohio State defense is really coming to play. And you seeing them in the second year of that scheme kind of do a little less thinking, just a little bit more playing. I think at times last year you saw that Jim Knowles scheme that is about stark opposite of what Ohio State used to do, really playing vanilla base defense. Jim Knowles, a lot of different looks, a lot of different cover packages, blitz packages. At times you saw Ohio State a little bit confused. Year two, this team looks a lot more kind of comfortable with what they want to do. And you're seeing guys like Sonny Styles really emerge as playmakers. Now, we got to talk about the Ohio State offense as well. And Maryland's defense, not known for a defense. You talk Maryland football, you're mostly thinking Taulia throwing the ball around, kind of winning some shootout games. They've been really good on the defensive side of the ball so far. Now, haven't played the stiffest of competition. That's fair, but only 15 points per game, 3.3 yards per carry, both top 30 in the country. This Maryland defense has a quality secondary. Guys like Tariq Still, Bo Braid. I'm really excited to see if Ohio State can kind of get that passing game or continue to get that passing game going. I think the biggest storyline, and Marvin Harrison Jr., that dude's a freak. Like, his ankle did not bend the way human ankles should bend. And I mean, most guys probably out for the game. He comes back, battles back. He's been playing banged up, but when he's full go, like coming off the bye week, he's going to be a factor. I kind of want to talk about some other guys. And again, that's in no way am I trying to disrespect Marvin Harrison Jr., by far the best wide receiver, arguably the best player in college football this year. But how about a guy like Cade Stover? And we talk about this a lot. What's the best friend to a quarterback, a new starting quarterback? Having a tight end that can work the field, work the middle of the field, kind of be a reliable safety valve in that offense. Getting Cade Stover back has been absolutely massive. And when things heat up around Kyle McCord, the offensive line, we'll get to there, maybe still some question marks. Having Cade Stover to check it down to a reliable target in the middle of the field has been massive. Emeka Egbuka has stepped up. I think you're seeing TreVeyon Henderson get back to form. I really disagree with the TreVeyon Henderson hate. Like, Trip Trainum's awesome. Mine Williams, a really good running back room for Ohio State. TreVeyon Henderson is the best running back on this team, and you're starting to see him get back to form. Most Ohio State fans know last year, like, he was banged up, playing banged up. He didn't have that kind of juice that he had as a freshman. You're seeing the glimpses of him as a true freshman starting to come back. I mean, he has that kind of juice. I would look to see him continue to get some work. And then the wide receiver room, I mean, we talked about that, absolutely loaded. The last thing I want to talk about for this Ohio State team, and probably the story that I think just gets ignored by the national media, Ohio State fans know to keep an eye on this, is that offensive line. I mean, I'm really interested to see this offensive line continue to take steps. Struggled a little bit, honestly, on the inside, I thought a little bit more against Notre Dame, which really wasn't as much of the concern. The tackles were kind of the question mark heading in. I thought that offensive line on the inside probably struggled a little bit more. Continuing to see those five guys kind of just emerge as a unit and continue to get better, that's the story, right? We say if you give Kyle McCord is a really talented quarterback. He's got talented weapons. He's got Ryan Day and Brian Hartline running that offense. They'll be fine. If they can pass protect, that Ohio State offense, like, you're not going to see me being concerned about it if that offensive line comes along. And I'm just not sure if Maryland has the guys up front. If you're looking and asking me what kind of team could beat this Ohio State team, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, it is teams that can get after the quarterback. Their biggest test will be against Penn State, will be against Michigan, team like Georgia, if you see them in the college football playoffs. Getting to the pick here, and I really do like this Maryland team, like a 19-point spread. I think Maryland has a shot at covering if they can hit some of those explosive plays. But for me, looking at this matchup, it's hard to pick Maryland going on the road and beating this team, especially coming off the bye, getting their guys 100%. This is an Ohio State team that a lot of people want to, and rightfully so to a certain extent. I mean, this is an Ohio State team that is arguably the most talented roster in college football. People can be critical of what they're seeing, but at the end of the day, you're seeing this Ohio State defense really come along. I think Kyle McCord in this offense is going to continue to take steps, and I don't see Maryland having the personnel, especially on the defensive line, to give Ohio State enough struggle. Maryland might score some points. Like, this offense is good. I just don't know if this game gets into a shootout, which I don't really see it happening because I think Ohio State's defense is just good enough. it's still hard to pick against Ohio State here, right? And my eyes will be less on the point spread. I won't be betting the point spread and more on this Ohio State offensive line coming together and those edge rushers, seeing if they can be kind of one of those impact performers that you want them to be to go win a national title, right? Kind of that. And I know this is lofty expectations, but the Chase Youngs, the Bosa's, like, can you have one of those guys, JTT or Jack Sawyer, emerge as one of those feared edge rushers? I think would be massive for Ohio State fans to look for. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. This is going to be a good one. Maryland can score some points. Excited to watch this one unfold. Appreciate you rocking with the fellas. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.